Hi, my name's Mark Littler and I'm the owner and editor-in-chief of The Whiskey Wash, and I'm also the owner of Mark Littler Limited. So welcome back to our YouTube channel, and if you've not been sleeping under a rock, you will have noticed that Macallan have just released one of the most sensational bottles of whiskey that the market has ever seen. Sensational for several reasons. One, it's the world's oldest ever single malt Scotch whiskey ever released at a whopping 84 years old. And it's also pretty expensive. It's £150,000, and it also looks sensational in this sort of kind of like donut shaped bottle. But what we're asking today is not whether you should go out and buy that one, £150,000, it's out of the reach of most people. But Macallan being Macallan, and this is what we've kind of got used to with Macallan nowadays, is that as well as the hyper expensive, hyper rare bottle, you also get the copycat bottle. And this one, this time, is called the Time Space Mastery, and it's priced at only £1,100. So in this video, we're going to take a look at whether you should be going out and buying it, because to be honest with you, it looks like a slam dunk. There's been some auctions going through already, and it's been making £1,900 or so. So we're going to address everything. We're going to go look at all the pros and all the cons, or all the reasons to buy and not to buy. So if you're sat on the fence, this is a video for you. Now, we're not going to go into too much detail about the specifics of each release. If you want to learn more about each release, we've got 3 amazing articles up on the Whiskey Wash. So if you want to get all your whiskey news, stories, articles, whatever, we've even got a really interesting article by the creative director of Macallan on the Whiskey Wash, which he wrote on the Whiskey Wash. So all your news and stuff, go to the Whiskey Wash, and if you want to decide whether you want to buy the Macallan Mastery, stay here. Now, the first reason for buying this, so let's start with the reasons to buy it. So the first reason to buy it, why on earth should you go and buy it? Oh, come on, it's bloody gorgeous, isn't it? If you're talking about, oh yeah, and if you like drinking whiskey, you're really going to hate this channel to a certain extent, because as much as we like drinking whiskey, we also appreciate the other things, like the design that goes into these things. Like, look at how amazing this bottle is. It's almost like this donut shaped bottle with all this origami paper folds in the box and everything like that. It really is beautiful. And that is kind of one of the reasons to go out there and buy it, because there isn't anything else that looks like it. I mean, the closest bottle that I can think of that looks a bit like this is the Louis XIII cognac, or Louis XIII cognac bottle, which again is that in the form of sort of like a 16th or 17th century flask, kind of like a donut shape as well. But there's really, you know, with Macallan, everything has been on the table for this release, and let's just focus on the Mastery. Everything's on the table for this, and it's kind of like they don't really care. It's like it's no A statement whiskey, which we'll get to slightly later, but it's all about how this looks and the design and the appeal of it. And they've gone all out. They've not just gone for a tall round bottle like the Red Collection. Like, how boring does the Red Collection look in comparison to this? Here's a £1,100 bottle that looks like nothing else out there on the market. And yet you've got people spending 200 grand on a Macallan Red Collection 60-year-old that looks like the 15 grand 40-year-old bottling. So that's what I think they've really nailed on this one. The design, the concept, it's all beautiful. It's all related to their 200th year anniversary. It's amazing. The design really is one of the strongest selling points, probably the strongest selling point for this bottle. And I don't think Macallan will beg to differ otherwise. Now, the next reason that you should go out and buy this is because basically, right, Macallan are like the Rolex of the watch world, or the BMW of the car world. They're the kind of brand nowadays that people on golf clubs talk about who know nothing about whiskey, in the same way that people will go out and buy a watch and they'll go out and buy an expensive Rolex because they think they're the Don. But hang on a minute, a Rolex isn't really that expensive. Go out and buy a Patek, go out and buy a Richard Mille, go out and buy a Max Boozer and Friends. Anyone watching this who knows MB&F watches, give me a big thumbs up and comment down there, because they are the absolute best. But a Rolex is kind of like, and same with BMWs. Go and get a BMW, oh brilliant, you've got an M3 on lease, fantastic. There's much better, more nuanced cars. But there is something to be said about the popularity of those brands that give them a certain degree of safety. You know, a Rolex is never going to stop signifying a position of wealth or a position of status. Likewise with a BMW, you know, those brands are always going to trump other lower brands. So there is definitely sort of like a comfort blanket in buying a Macallan release like this, because you know it can never completely disappear, but likewise, you know it's already at that top of sort of peak saturation. Now, Macallan is a huge part of the secondary market. To give you an idea of the scale of Macallan in the secondary market, so the auction market, in 2023 we recorded just about £14 million worth of sales of Macallan bottles on the secondary market. So £14 million worth of bottles of Macallan were sold in the secondary market. To put that into perspective, number 2 in the list was Curaçao at 3 million. And number 3, for everybody who says that Springbank's for drinking, £2.7 million worth of Springbank was sold on the secondary market. And that is a heck of a lot more in terms of volume, relatively speaking, because the Macallan ones are often quite a lot bit more expensive than the likes of Springbank. So people are flipping like the Springbank in a big way. It's not just for drinking. But so that's the reason for yes, because there is that degree of safety. Macallan is one of the biggest players, or the biggest player in the secondary market. They are probably one of the most well-known and generic whiskey brands out there nowadays. So there's a decent amount of security. Now, of course, you've got the potential for future appreciation. So this is our third reason for buying it, potential for future appreciation. You've got interesting things on this. And I think the price point is absolutely spot on with this. If you look at bottles like A Night on Earth in Scotland, or the Harmonies and that sort of stuff, the lower end, you know, the 100, 200, 300 pound releases, the market doesn't like them. They're too saturated. There's way too many of them released, and they have never really performed that well. Look at the editions, for example. You know, the edition 1 absolutely flew, and the rest, yeah, they've done okay, but not fantastic. They're too cheap. The key sort of price point with Macallan bottles, it seems, are the ones that are a little bit more punchier, and I'm talking here sort of a bit like the folios. I mean, they're only £350, and the bonds, I really don't like the bonds, but they were sort of £600 or so. But this is kind of like £1,100, you know, there's enough going on design-wise for it not just to be a tall round bottle. There's definitely a lot more design-wise going on the James Bond bottles, but it doesn't have that James Bond connection in terms of cross appeal. And there's definitely a lot more, to a certain extent, going on in the folios, because the folios, as we know, are just the same bottles, time in, time out, just change the book. Love the design, love the concept of them, but this is just on another planet. So it's a very obvious buy, this one, but it's you know, I think the price point and just where it's pitched at, there's a lot going on because of that price point. They couldn't have made this any cheaper, I don't think, because of all the glass and stuff like that. But it's unique. I just love it. Anyway, fourth reason to go out and buy it. It's a unique proposition, and this kind of sums up all the other ones. It's very hard to see that Macallan would do another whiskey in a donut. If you're wondering what that noise is, if you can hear the rattling, we've got, hello, Mr. Whippet here, Percy. He's with us filming today. So he keeps scratching around though, so I don't know if you can hear him or not, but there he is, trying to get a snack. Anyway, it's hard to imagine that Macallan would ever do anything like this again. You can't really go out with this donut-shaped bottle and do it again and again and again. I think it has to be a one-off. It's his 200th year anniversary. It's the 84-year-old world's oldest single malt Scotch whisky. And you know, I don't think it can be repeated this. I just think it's a unique bottle. I don't think you'll see many copycats, you know, where we'll see lots of other copycats of other Macallan bottles, because it's just essentially a tall round bottle in a different box. This one's slightly different. So let's get onto the nose, because I think, you know, that can put quite a compelling case forward for the yeses. But let's look at the nose, because these are also pretty pressing, really. Anyway, no, it's no age statement whiskey, people, for £1,100. Like, you could buy 3 18-year-old bottles at the price of this one release. You could go out and buy some 25-year-old bottles from some other brands. You could go out and buy nearly a 40-year-old bottle of whiskey from Glenfarclas at this price. So if you're looking at it just in terms of whiskey, it's £1,100 for no age statement whiskey. It's a piece of crap. Like, it could be 3-year-old whiskey. All the profit here is on the hyperbole and the marketing around it, which is pretty damn good. And, you know, the market does care about all of this sort of stuff. But I think with all of these, we're going to see a surge. So as I mentioned in the start, we're seeing prices up to nearly £2,000 at auction. So we've gone bang, right, okay, straight up here. And look, people, it is not going to keep doing this. It's going to go blum. There's a reason why the first bottles have all appeared in Speyside whiskey auctions, which is inevitably where all of the leaked bottles come out from Macallan. And the cynic in me says that this is Macallan deliberately giving their staff bottles that they know will hit the auction just around the release time, so that, okay, the ballot's out, 1,100 quid, bang, well, they're in auction for £1,900. And for those that don't understand the nuances of the market, they'll think, take my money and go and buy it. I think the reality of it is that the staff are given access to these bottles, and even a lot of retailers are given access to these bottles, and then they're the ones that are getting them put into these auctions. So I'll let you decide, get in the comments, what do you think's happening down there with these bottles? But I think it's an interesting dynamic, the way that it's always these Speyside whiskey auctions that get these first bottles. But I do think, remember the James Bond. The James Bonds were up here, and then it kind of went ba-dum, 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 leveled out. So, number 2, no. Why wouldn't you buy it? Well, basically, your mum's neighbour is signed up for this ballot. And again, this kind of comes back to one of our earlier points about Macallan being the Rolex and BMW of the whiskey world. Like, everybody knows about this. Like, everybody knows about this. It's fantastic, a piece of marketing. But, you know, 5 years ago, I think the tipping point was 2018, wasn't it? When Macallan released the Genesis, and you had all these queues outside the distillery trying to get hold of these bottles. It made headline news everywhere. Like, come on, we all know about it. Like, everyone's given an invitation to go out and buy it now before the ballot. Like, I just think that there's a lot of, everybody knows about this. So you're not doing anything clever. And I don't think you really need to be go into too much more detail than it's not clever to go and buy this. You're just basically following the herd and following the new releases. So my last one for not buying it is again, it comes down to somewhere similar to the James Bond effect, in terms of we've got an unknown release number. Now, I'm guessing that they're going to be pretty high. The glass that was the whiskey, the glass that these bottles are in, like this donut shaped bottle, it's going to be proprietary glass. They would have made these molds custom for this specific release, and it's probably unlikely that we're going to see another release in this glass in the future. So that means one thing: you can't produce glass molds like that cheaply and cost effectively, or at a small volume. Now, if you want to be positive, you can say that, well, they use this glass for the £150,000 84-year-old. Well, yeah, okay, so they can kind of offset the cost of producing that by making such a large margin on those other bottles. But likewise, well, let's just make 5,000-10,000 of these. Let's see. Well, we've got them. We may as well sell them. And I think the releases are going to be trickled. Again, like the James Bond, right? You didn't get this one in this ballot. Okay, there's another ballot, there's another ballot, there's another ballot. Time will tell. None of us have got a crystal ball. The only people who know that are Macallan. But I think if the release numbers were relatively limited, they would have told us about this in the press releases. They would have told, you know, the folios are limited to 3,500 roughly now. So the fact that there's been no details about this, and the fact that they've gone so all out with the design that they know it's going to be an eye-catching piece for people to go out and buy, they'll decide, yeah, let's go and do this. There you go. Right. Should you go out and buy it? Well, it's a strange time in the market. We're kind of at the end of a 3-month period of stability in the market. So 3-month period of stability means 3 months of no fails or no more drops, but also no growth. But that's also a good thing in a way. So I think we're starting to see this capitulation of people going like, right, the market's dropped for 2 years now. Prices are at rock bottom. Let's go bargain hunting. And it is a very good time to go bargain hunting. So I think there's this sort of degree of I think the market will respond quite favourably to these, depending on how many come out there. For me, if you can afford to buy it, and you can afford to keep it for 10 years, don't ever think of whiskey as an investment for yourself, think of it as an investment for your children, then I think you're going to be okay. I think in 10 years' time, we'll be going back, wow, this is a jaw-dropping bottle. But at the same time, no one's going to be drinking them. Very few people are going to be drinking them. So you know what? If you're going to be doing that, there's still going to be a lot larger number around in 10, 15 years' time. So I'll let you be the judge. Get in the comments below and tell me, are you going to be buying this? Are you going to be waiting for them to drop at auction, like drop in price at auction and then pick one up? Or are you just going to go out there and go, take my money, I'm in the ballot, I've won it, I'm paying you Macallan?